Welcome to SkillUp Academy. Yesterday, we made history by having our first outside expert trainer here. Rosemary was incredible at showing us how to fight our fears of public speaking. I was so amazed by all the tips that she gave and so grateful that she came to explain that to us. So today, we're making history again for the third time in a row by having it's the second training session on skill development. All right. So today's training session is going to be on how to decide what skill to learn next and how to break it down into sub skills. Are you guys ready? Yeah, that's the spirit. All right. So, as I said, this is what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to split that into 4 different lessons. And so the first one is the best way to learn a new skill is never the best way for everyone. So who's guilty of having Googled best way to learn, insert whatever you want here. So best way to learn how to play the guitar, best way to learn how to juggle, best way to learn how to draw, best way to learn photography. Anyone? I know I'm guilty of that. So I see at least 2 problems with that. So one says who? Who says that it's the best way to learn something when you Google best way to learn guitar? Someone decided in their article or in their video that it was the best way to learn. It was one person's opinion. And 2, it really depends on the previously acquired skills that you have. So if I want to learn how to play a killer riff, the best guitar riff in the world, I don't even know how to play the simple chords. There's no way that it's going to apply to me. It's not going to be the best way for me to learn that. So whenever you Google best way to learn something, most of the time you will have to have previously acquired knowledge. So I'm not saying don't do that, but be mindful that if you don't succeed following the steps that they give you, it's probably because you don't yet have the required sub skills to learn it. So save it somewhere on the side and review it a bit later once you've practiced a bit more, and then you'll see if it's actually the best way for you or not. But it's very subjective. Understood? All right. Lesson number 2, chunking. Can anyone tell me who's that guy on the picture? And what's the skill he's practicing as well? Yeah, so basketball. Basketball is a subject, right? What's the specific skill that he's practicing in that photo? And yeah, I guess there's no basketball fan right now, but this guy is LeBron James, who's one of the top basketball players of all time. The skill he's practicing in that photo is throwing a basketball. So remember, a skill is the ability to do something well. So it is an action. And throwing a basketball, you can measure how good you get at this. So you can measure that by, let's say you throw 100 of them. And so you can count how many of them you actually scored. So if you score 20 out of 100, that's how well you did. Very simple, right? But if you do want to learn to throw a basketball, if that's your skill that you want to learn, this is a lot more complex than it seems. Can any of you name some of the sub-skills required to make that happen, to become better at throwing basketball? So if we look at this photo, we can see a few things that he's doing. No one can think of sub skills here. Throwing a basketball, there's definitely a lot involved, and a lot of people actually don't think deep enough. Yeah, jumping. Exactly. He's jumping. That's one of them. I think I listed 7 or 8. So we're going to look at them. Here's some ideas. All right. Jumping. Ajit mentioned that is one aspect of it. Flexing legs. It is a skill. It is a chunk in your brain that you got to practice. Raising arms, right? So we saw in the picture, where was his arm? Was it super high, near face, below face? There is a right placement for your arm to be depending on your distance and the force you need to apply. The arm pushing motion. So once you release the ball, how much do you need to flex here? You got to think about that when you throw the basketball. The hand tilting motion. So when you release, how much do you tilt to make it a perfect throw? Apart from that, calculating the distance from which you are from the net and the force required for your push to be hit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 little sub skills in there. So you see that throwing a basketball sounds like this is the minimum thing. You can't break this down, but you really, really can. And lesson number 3 here, you learn that how these chunks actually help you learn other skills. So we've identified some of them, like jumping, for example. So if you want to learn any other sport, most other sports, jumping is actually super important. There is jumping in a lot of sports. Apart from that, running. Pretty much all the sports that I know involve running. Maybe not golf, but most sports involve running, dodging, jumping, controlling breathing probably in all of them. Calculating distance, calculating force. There's actually some math involved in a lot of sports. And it's when you realize all these chunks that you need to get better at that you can actually get better at the skills. So the chunks that you create for playing basketball, you can see how this actually applies to learning other sports. And this is so true of every skill you're going to learn. You're going to learn many different chunks that creates a skill that can be reused for other skills. Here are more examples. Just before going live, I was showing how I learned to play the ukulele. That happened last month. And so ukulele is a strings instrument, much like the guitar, but it's much smaller. And I had never played an instrument before, or not a strings instrument before. So I was starting pretty much from scratch, which meant how to hold the guitar properly, which sounds ridiculous, but it was actually challenging in some ways. How to place your fingers. This was the worst for me. Ukulele is super tiny, and placing them on the frets was very difficult. And moving from one position to the other, that's another sub-skill. Learning how to strum. There's many strumming patterns in ukulele. I think there's hundreds. I've learned 3. I learned at least 4 chords. And basically all of those I can translate into guitar. So the chords are not exactly the same. The finger placement is not exactly the same. But the way my fingers are used to moving now, I can actually learn to play guitar more easily, much more easily than if I didn't learn ukulele, right? So another one on the right is salsa. I learned to dance salsa in November, and again, I started from absolute zero. I'm super stiff. I'm a metalhead, so for me, dancing. If I go to a concert, for me, dancing is the head banging. That was dancing for me. So moving my hips, moving my feet, moving my legs, my hips, my shoulders, all of this is completely new movements I had never done before. So, but by learning these chunks, now I can more easily move my shoulders, like I said, my legs, my hips, my feet, all of this. And this allows me to have the rhythm to be able to do other types of dancing, like bachata. So yeah, but even outside of dancing, like these, being able to move these gives me more flexibility to learn plenty of other skills that require these muscles to move. Good. Chunking. One more example, programming. So if there's any programmers here, you'll get that right away. But once you learn one programming language, it's so much easier to learn another language. And the reason for that is that all programming languages have things in common, like variables, functions, objects, a syntax, loops, things like that. All the languages have that. So once you learn these concepts for one language, you can directly translate that into another language. What you need to learn in the other language is the syntax and the keywords, and that's pretty much it. So the first programming language you're going to learn is always going to be more difficult than the second one. And in some ways, at one point, you're going to be able to learn 8, 10 different languages. It's the same with learning an actual spoken language. My first language is French, so it's much easier for me to learn any other Latin languages from the Latin root. So, yeah, good examples. Ready to move on? All right. All right, the core of this training session is actually on, how long has it been now? 11 minutes. All right. So it's on building skill trees. And here's what I mean by a skill tree. Skill tree gives you a clear sense of direction and makes it easier for you to judge the level of complexity required to learn a specific new skill. All right. That's complicated. We're going to go through that with examples, and yeah, it's going to be a lot clearer, hopefully, after I'm done. So the main benefits of the skill tree approach is that it makes you more aware of your current capabilities. It makes it easier for you to choose new skills to learn. Churn is the combination of choose and learn. I invented a new word. 3, it makes it easy for you to track progress. And 4, you can actually share it with people. And we're going to go through exactly what it looks like. Here's my beautiful, beautiful drawing of a skill tree. So I did that recently, but drawing was the first skill that I started learning when I started the SkillUp approach. And obviously, as you learned in the first session, drawing is that really a skill? That's a bit too broad, right? So when I decided I wanted to learn how to draw, I had to choose specific subskills, which for me was, you're seeing it here, sketching, line art, and coloring using Photoshop. That was my goal. So I had 15 hours of time to practice. So I decided these are the 3 subskills that I'm going to learn. Good, simple. And take a sip of water. All right. So in order for me to be able to achieve these, I had to define what are the subskills that I should learn before I get there. And these are about drawing on pen and paper, but in my case, it was on Photoshop. So instead of pencil gripping here, you can picture holding the mouse. Why not? It's a skill, right? It's a very easy skill, but it's a skill. Second one, you can picture mouse handling. This one's a real skill. How to move your mouse at good precision levels. If you've been using a computer for a while with a mouse, you might not realize how hard it was to start with. But when you think about how you began, you'll realize that, yeah, it's actually, you've learned to do that. It was a skill. So with me drawing on Photoshop using a mouse, it would be really hard to sketch without being able to do that. So if we look at the components in that drawing, so I'm going to go into detail. So each rectangle is a skill. It's a sub-skill, right? All of them are sub-skills. The line, so you read that from top to bottom. So the line shows the direction in which you should be learning things. So this is the last thing that you would be learning in order. The number here, so you see 3. What that means is that I need to be of level 3 in the skill above in order to be able to do this one properly, right? If I can't move my mouse properly it's going to be really, really difficult to start sketching. So same with coloring, same with line art. So this is the level I require in here to be able to do that. Now in here you see little squares next to each of the rectangles, each of the skills. So these signify your expertise level. So if I look at line art here, it has nothing. That means I've never done line art in my entire life. Sketching here means, so one square means I'm a beginner. 2 squares mean, it means I'm intermediate. 3 means expert. And 4, I've got nothing else to learn. I'm like a complete pro in it. So 4 is actually pretty rare. I personally probably would never put 4 anywhere, but hey, it's subjective. So I'm pretty good at moving my mouse. So I put 3 here. I'm an expert at moving mouse. I should do a training on how to move your mouse. That would be an incredibly fun. Who's up for this? Yeah, I won't do that. You want me to do that? No, I won't do that. It would be boring. So we're 17 minutes in. So I wasn't sure if I had time to show you another example. So I'm going to skip the other example because I want to keep this as short as possible. So instead of showing the next example, I'm going to show you how to build a skill tree for yourself in just 5 steps, okay? So the first step, basically picture what we did with basketball, with the throwing basketball one. So we brainstormed in our heads what's required to throw a perfect basketball. All right, that's step number 1. Super easy. You can do that pen and paper. You can use an app, just a bullet list of everything. And now when you're ready to start drawing, you start from top to bottom, just like I was mentioning. You start drawing the skeleton and the links between them. So if we go back here, you start by drawing this rectangle, this rectangle, this rectangle, and you link them with a simple line. Number 3, you rate the expertise level you need to have from bottom to top. So once you're done going from top to bottom, now you're back to the bottom, right? So you decide for faces what level of proficiency you need to have in controlling line weight to be able to do it. So put 1 here, 1, 1, 1, 1, and to the 3s that I mentioned earlier. So I need level 3 mouse handling to be able to sketch until you're all the way to the top. All right, so top to bottom, bottom to top. Number 4, rate your current level in each of the subskills in the tree. So that's the little squares here. So once you've done that, the magic, it really starts to happen. You're aware of what you have done before, what you've previously learned, and you know what you need to actually focus on to do the other subskills. So once you have this, you're actually aware if you're going to be able to learn the skill you set out to learn in the amount of time that you have. So as an example, if I decided to do these 3 like this, but if this was not expert level, so if I wasn't good at mouse handling, maybe I should reconsider that in 15 hours if I can actually do that. So if I had never touched the mouse before, I don't want to learn sketching, line art, and coloring, it's not realistic in 15 hours. So instead of focusing on all 3, that's when I would realize, you know what, let's not do a line art. Let's not do coloring. Let's just focus on sketching and mouse handling. And maybe another month, I would do the rest. Make sense? That level of awareness, I think, is really important. And a lot of people don't know. They really don't. And step number 5, so review the skill tree daily or weekly as you practice the subskills. So this is a living document. This is something that you keep updating. So you see these squares or this expertise level, you got to keep changing that depending on where you are right now. So if I were to revisit this one right now, my sketching would probably be a 2. Line art might actually be a 3. It was surprisingly easier. than I thought, and coloring might be 3 as well. So always revisit your skill tree, so that if ever you want to continue your drawing lesson, your drawing training a bit later on, you can always refer back to it and you know where you left at. So 5 steps to build it, really simple. Top to bottom, bottom to top, rate yourself and review. Other tips on building a skill tree, and I'm going to try to go through really quickly. So we talked about Googling things. It's not a bad thing. So start with that. Do some research on how other people are learning things that you want to learn, and just list all the resources. But don't think more of that. Just start from there. Second, ask people around you how they learn the skills. So if you have friends that learn to speak English, to play the guitar, learn to draw, ask them, how did they learn it? Was it useful? What did they like or not like about the approach? And always go as deep as you can. So throwing basketball, not that deep, but by analyzing the image, we could figure out that jumping was involved, flexing legs was involved, the movement, raising arms and pushing and all that. We could always think of all the different components. It's actually really important. And as mentioned just earlier, start with just a simple bullet list, because it's so much easier to rearrange a list than it is to redraw things, right? Number 4? Nope, that's number 5. I messed up my numbering, so let's pretend it's number 4. So when you start drawing on the page, be mindful that it will take a lot of space. So try to space things out as it grows and then bring it back together. If we look at the example that I actually didn't show, see how much space that takes? And I actually didn't have enough space. So when you do start, make things really broad. Draw with a pencil. It's so much easier to erase than with ink, right? So draw with a pencil. And it's really important to note that you won't get it on first try. I don't think I've ever been able to do it on first try, and it was perfect. Okay? So it is normal that when you build it, you'll realize that things are not in the right place. You forgot to think about specific sub-skills. It will happen. So it's okay. Do it quickly. Don't do perfect lines. So last point here, don't do perfect lines because you will redraw it. Okay. Well, these are some tips when you do it, and that's actually all I've got for you. So, skill trees are really important to build your awareness of where you stand in your skill development and where to go next. That's how you can decide, I want to focus on these specific skills within the skill that I want to practice. All of this makes sense? I know it was a lot more technical than the first session. Hopefully I was clear enough. It is a bit tricky. It's the first time I explained it live, so hope it went good. I want to mention also that other sessions. So every time I'm going to do one session myself, I'm going to show the next 3. So next Monday, we're going to do history yet again for a 3rd session on skill development. So the third session is going to be on why skill development is so important. And I did touch a bit on that on the first session by explaining my story, how it changed my life. But I want to go deeper. I want to show you how it can change your life, not just how it changed mine. And there's 8 different components to it, at least 8 different components. And it's amazing what it can do for you. So I'm really excited for that one personally, and I hope a lot of people will show up. Otherwise, it's recorded. Next on Tuesday is Michael Trenmer. So I did announce him on Wednesday. So now it's closer to happening. So on Tuesday, he's going to show you the 5 mistakes that you coaches make. So if you're looking into going to the coaching business, it's a must. It's a must for you. So Michael's an expert in that. He's a coach of coaches. So he trains coaches to bring them to the next level. He's got an amazing presence on camera. So I'm really looking forward to it. And because the session went so well yesterday with Rosemary, I had to ask her, would you come again? You've got so much to say on the subject. Your energy is so good. So I'm really excited for her to be back next Wednesday. She's going to show us how to start and end a presentation. A lot of people, when they start a presentation, they start with, can you hear me? How's it sound? See the presentation? All good? Right? A lot of people start that way. I do as well, but that's before recording, so all is good. And how to end the presentation. So I probably didn't end my presentation that well, and she's going to show you how to end it. A lot of people end presentations by saying, well, that's it. It's the end, right? So I kind of did that a bit now, and so I'm going to learn from her, and hopefully everyone's going to learn from her. So that's all I had for today. That was SkillUp Academy. That was the second training session on skill development. I'm happy you guys came, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next training session. See ya.